welcome to Microfiche Microphone. I'm Micah, and on this channel we look at microfiche from the past, old newspaper articles in the public domain. We look at them with our modern eyes, our modern perspective, and see what we can learn from them. On this microfiche time capsule, we are looking back at the Juvenile Instructor from the 15th of August, 1901, and this article is entitled Lives of Our Leaders, the First Council of the 70, President Rulon S. Wells. So I don't know anything about this guy, really. Wells. That rings a bell, and I'm thinking Daniel H. Wells. He was a counselor in the First Presidency under Brigham Young, and then afterwards they didn't quite know what to do with him, so they made him kind of a counselor to the 12, after Brigham Young's death, and he lived for a lot of years, and he gave a lot of talks in conference, a lot. So, but I don't know much about his son. I'm assuming that he was his son, because that would make sense, like, time-wise. But we'll double-check that. It could have been a grandson as well. Also, another name rings a bell, Junius F. Wells. I think he was in the Young Men's General Presidency. I will have to look that up. I'm assuming that they are related in some way, but I'm not sure how, because I think they were contemporary to each other. Could they be brothers, maybe? Just something I'm throwing out there. Could also be cousins. Yeah, so let's find out about this guy. Like I said, this guy himself, Rulon S. Wells, I do not know. Also, just a footnote, First Council of the 70 is today called the Presidency of the 70. That is the same calling, it just had a couple of different names. So, alright, let's take a look at the article, and then we'll do some fact-checking. President Rulon Seymour Wells was born July 7th, 1854, in Salt Lake City, inside the stone wall just east of the Deseret News Corner. I didn't even know Salt Lake City had a stone wall. He was the son of President Daniel H. and Sister Louisa F. Wells. I told you, Daniel H. Wells, so was his father. There you go. In 1861, Brother Rulon moved with the family across the street south to the Wells home, formerly occupied by Apostle Ezra T. Benson, where he lived until his marriage in 1883. He was baptized when about 8 years of age by his father and confirmed by Elder John V. Long. Baptized at 8 was actually semi-unusual at the time, but yeah, awesome. Brother Rulon attended the various common schools of his boyhood, which, as he recollects, came in the following order. Sister Moore's in the old Deseret Museum building. Huh, interesting. They used a museum building as a school. Okay. Dr. Doremus at the Union Academy. Dr. Standard, 13th Ward Meeting House. This school only for a few days as it... Okay, I'm guessing only lasted for a few days, as it was brought to a sudden close by the death of the doctor, who fell dead on his way to school only a few days after the opening. Wow. Like, that's a bit dramatic. He fell dead on his way to school. Like, wow. Okay. Bartlett Tripp in 15th Ward Granary. O.H. Riggs in 14th Ward Meeting House, and later in the 70s Hall on State Street, and still later in the old Union Academy. Okay. Also, the Morgan and Macaulay Night School for Penmanship, and finally the Deseret University, then under the direction of Elder David O. Calder as a commercial college. He was here when Dr. John R. Park came and inaugurated the change by which the commercial college was transformed into a collegiate institution. Dr. Park was ably assisted by Professor Bellerive, Dr. Benedict, Professor Munch, and later by Dr. Mazer. Under the tuition of these educators, he took a scientific and classical course, such as was at the time being offered. On the 15th of August, 1868, at the age of 14, he was ordained an elder by Elder W. J. Smith. On the 1st of April, 1871, at the age of 17, he left school to accept his first employment with a party of engineers, who, with Jesse W. Fox, Sr., as chief engineer, started from Salt Lake City to locate and survey the route of the Utah Southern Railroad, now a part of the Oregon Short Line System. Okay. In the winter of 1873-74, Brother Wells was chosen by the Utah legislature as engrossing clerk at the age of 19 to 20. In 1874, at the age of 20, he was employed by Elder John R. Winder in the Assessor's and Collector's Office for Salt Lake City. In 1875-21, he was employed at the sawmills E and F, Big Cottonwood Canyon, belonging to his father, in the capacity of bookkeeper. It was while in this employment in October 1875 that he received the call for his first mission, at the age of 21. The following incident, as related by himself, is of interest. I was measuring lumber as it came from the mill and was being stacked nearby, when I was seized with a peculiar feeling over which I had no control, and which impelled me to descend from the pile of lumber and go to the office, a little board shanty which served the purpose of office, store, and bedroom combined. It was situated about 300 or 400 feet from where I was working. After entering the door and locking it, I knelt down and prayed to the Lord to send me where he wanted me to go. This was the whole burden of my prayer, which lasted only about 1 minute. The whole proceeding was to me a very strange one, for I did not understand the meaning of it, and it was so unusual and out of the ordinary. Yeah, that is a little strange. Stop working and move right now, yeah? On this very day, and probably at the same moment, my name was being called in the Tabernacle in Salt Lake City, where the conference was then being held for a mission. The first intimation I had of this call was when my mother, then 51 years old, rode on horseback, in company with Archibald Livingstone, who was superintendent of the mills, on the following day to Mill F, and apprised me of this fact. Interesting. So you had a sudden feeling, yeah? Being like, I think I need to, pledge my willingness to go, yeah? Interesting. On October 22, 1875, Brother Wells was ordained a 70 and set apart for his mission to Europe by President Brigham Young, assisted by President Daniel H. Wells, his father. Yeah. On arriving in Liverpool, Brother Rulon was assigned to the Swiss and German mission, whither he journeyed in company with Elder Martin Lenzi. In 1876, at the age of 22, he assisted Elder Theodore Brandley in holding a public meeting in the city of Berlin, which was attended by dignitaries of the German Empire, there being present members of the Reichstag and the Royal Police and several representatives of the state church. A state church. Let's see, in Berlin, would that be Lutheranism or would that be Catholicism? I'm actually not 100% sure. I'm guessing it was Lutheranism, yeah? Returning home again in company with Elder Lenzi, with a company of emigrating saints, Elder Lenzi and Wells having charge of the Swiss and German branch of the company, they held meeting on board of the steamer Wisconsin and arrived in New York, July 7, 1877, where Elder Wells was met by his mother and sister, and after visiting with his father's relatives in the state of New York, he continued his journey home, where he arrived July 23, 1877. He was afterward active as a home missionary for a number of years. Brother Wells was in the employ of ZCMI from 1877 until 1880, and for a few months kept books for Mr. John Brooks, who was running the Chicago smelter and at Rush Lake, Tooele County. Interesting. In 1881, he accepted the position from Honorable John W. Young, having charge of his books and clerks in Arizona on the line of the Atlantic and Pacific Railway Company, where Brother Young had a contract for building 100 miles of road, besides getting out ties and timber. Brother Wells returned home in December 1882. On January 18, 1883, he was married to Miss Josephine E. Beatty, daughter of H.S. and Marion T. Beatty, or is it Beatty, by whom he had 7 children, 2 sons and 5 daughters. Has had, okay. During this year, he built his present home in the 18th Ward and moved in on January 9, 1884. Here he has resided ever since. He at once identified himself with the ward and served in the several capacities of teacher in the Sunday school, ward teacher, president of the Mutual Improvement Association, and second assistant superintendent of the Sunday school. On returning from Arizona, he was again employed by ZCMI until March 1886, when he accepted the secretaryship of the Cooperative Wagon and Machine Company, then known as Grant, Odell and Company. He served as secretary and treasurer, also as director of this institution until 1896, excepting for about a year, 1891 to 92, during which time he had charge of the office work of Heber J. Grant and Company. He was secretary of Zion's Benefit Building Society and was elected secretary of the Home Fire Insurance Company of Utah. This latter position he also held until 1896. That's really random. In April 5th, 1893, okay, we're going backwards in time, I guess, he was chosen to fill a vacancy in the First Council of the 70 caused by the death of President Jacob Gates, and was ordained on the same day to that position by President George Q. Cannon, assisted by President W. Woodruff, President L. Snow, and several of the apostles. Let's see, 1893. So he was just short of 40. He was 39, yeah, 38, 39. On May 8, 1896, he was called on a mission to Europe, having been unanimously chosen by the First Presidency and 12 apostles to succeed Apostle Anton H. Lund in the presidency of the European Mission. That's quite a big job. He departed for this mission in company with Elder Joseph W. McMurrin on June 29, 1896. At the age of 42. During this mission, he visited the various conferences of Great Britain 5 or 6 times, and those of the continental missions 3 or 4 times, mostly in company with President Joseph W. McMurrin, his co-laborer in the presidency of the mission. He's also in the presidency of the 70. He returned home on Christmas Eve, 1898, having been met in New York by his wife and eldest daughter, and accompanied by President McMurrin. Soon after, he took up the insurance business, and on December 1st, 1899, was installed as manager at Salt Lake City of the Mutual Life Insurance Company of New York. Since returning from Europe, he has visited many of the stakes of Zion at the quarterly conferences and labored with his associates among the 70s. He is also one of the general board of the YMMIA. In November 1900, he was elected to the lower house of the 4th Legislature of the state of Utah and served the term from January 14th to March 14th, 1901. Interesting. That's the end of the article. There's no signature either. Okay, I feel like it was a touch disjointed, so at least it's not as biased as some of the other ones we've had. But let's do a little fact checking, yes? So, let's see. Rulon S. Wells. Because I don't really feel like I have a beat on this guy yet, but yeah. It might also be partly because he was in his 40s when it was written, when the article was written, 45, and he lived kind of a long time. So Rulon Seymour Wells, okay, he died at the age of 86. So this is a really short article, so I'm just going to go ahead and read it. Rulon Seymour Wells, July 7, 1854 to May 7, 1941, was a Utah politician and was a general authority of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS Church, from 1893 until his death. Biography. Wells was born in Salt Lake City, Utah Territory to LDS Church leader Daniel H. Wells, 1814 to 1891, and Louisa Free, 1824 to 1886. In 1875, Wells traveled to Europe as a Mormon missionary and worked primarily in Germany and Switzerland. Yeah, we learned that. He returned to the United States in 1877. Consistent. On January 18, 1883, he married Josephine Eliza Beatty, 1857 to 1923. I think they did mention that, didn't they? In April 1893, Wells was chosen as a member of the 7-man First Council of the 70. In 1896, he succeeded Anton H. Lund as president of the European Mission of the Church, headquartered in Liverpool, England. So far, very consistent, yeah? In December 1898, Wells returned to Utah. In the United States election in 1900, Wells was elected to the Utah House of Representatives. He served as a member of the House for its 4th session, which lasted from January to March 1901. He did not stand for re-election in 1902. That's a really short term, yeah? 3 months? Following the death of J. Golden Kimball in 1938, Wells became the senior president of the 70, a position he held until his own death in 1941. Wells died in Salt Lake City from colon cancer. He has been a general authority of the church for almost 50 years. Wow. I still don't really feel like I have a beat on this guy. I feel like that's very sketchy information. It's not very detailed. I do appreciate the story about him, like, stopping his work and going and praying, because and then he discovered later that at that exact time was when he was called to go on a mission. I think that's pretty cool. But I don't really know what this guy was about. Yeah, I feel like he seemed relatively hardworking. He definitely showed a willingness to do different things. And then he was elected, but he didn't like apply for re-election. I feel like he didn't really like the limelight so much, and that's probably part of the reason why it's so hard for me to nail this guy down. Because it's like people wanted him to, but he didn't want to himself. I am curious, however, how he was related to Junius F. Wells, so I'm going to Google that really quick. Junius F. Wells was the son of Daniel H. Wells, so they were brothers or possibly half-brothers. I don't know which, because I believe Daniel H. Wells was a polygamist, if I am not mistaken. Okay, so they were brothers of some kind, yeah? However that played out, either full or half. Okay, that makes sense to me. I thought they were in the same generation. Okay. Anyways, so I don't feel like I really have this guy nailed down, and I don't feel like I can really say much about his character, because the description wasn't detailed enough. So I will keep an eye out for other articles on him and see if we can kind of fill in the gaps of our education in the future. But I did find that interesting either way. There was a lot of interesting information in it. So I would say he was a person who worked with insurance, and he was willing to go on missions, and he was very well acquainted with Europe. Ran for office once and won, and then didn't run for re-election. Also, I did notice one thing. Even though the time he lived, most general authorities were polygamists, it doesn't look like he was. He had one wife, and what did they say, 8 children? Something like that. So kind of a semi-normal sized family for the time, yeah. Obviously that's a lot of children to have with, compared to today, but that is a reasonable sized family at the time. It's not like, who was it we were talking about? George Reynolds, I think it was, who had 32 children. And you're like, whoa, calm down. Yeah. Anyways, watch that video. It's really interesting. I thought he was cool. Anyways, but I wish I could say the same about Rulon S. Wells, because I feel like he could be cool. I don't know. There's just not enough information. Anyway, but I hope you enjoyed learning about him anyway. And if you did, please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.